So getting ready to go play Arkansas State. Had a really good long week, taking advantage, I think, of the rest that we needed. But the work has been really good too, and I think our guys have been really intent on what we got to do, to build off the momentum that we've created the last couple of weeks. Certainly preparing to go up there and have to go do it a little bit more shorthanded than we were. It's kind of been the story of the year. So, we've got guys that are stepping up, that are going to play well, that are excited about the opportunity to do it. And I've said this before. When you're down a few guys, everyone needs to play well around them. D-line needs to play better, take some pressure off the back end. Linebackers, same thing. On offense, we need to play better. We got to go execute, move the football, score points where every drive doesn't feel like it's a critical stop. So everyone's got to elevate their game. That's what I expect to happen. Injury-wise, I would say Jax is probable. He's been pretty limited throughout the course of the long week that we've had here. But injury-wise, other than that, it's pretty much the same as it has been. Might get Landon Batiste back this week from his collarbone, which we thought was going to be maybe season-ending, but looks like he's working back into practice, so might get him back. He was playing well whenever he got hurt, so certainly that'll be a good thing for us too if we can get another guy back and get ready to go. But the reality is, there's a lot of things to build off of from the last couple of weeks. The fast starts have been great. Now get an opportunity to try to start fast and go finish the second half a little better than we have. Made some key stops on defense, got some big takeaways when we needed them at times, and then offensively, threw the ball a whole lot better the last 4 weeks than what we were doing previously in the beginning of the year. Have some guys in the throw game that are stepping up, and Shelton, Charles Robertson, Landon Strother last week, I thought his game was huge, the third down conversions he had. Playing a team that's won 4 out of their last 5. They've got some confidence after they lost 4 in a row, and then they kind of flipped the switch. So, we've been talking about trying to, at some point this dam had to break. And now you got to ride the wave and you got to create some more momentum for yourself. So, today we'll go execute a Wednesday practice. Need to go do that really well because going on the road to play a good opponent at their place is never an easy thing to do. But there's a lot riding on the game, obviously.
Jalen Clark, where is he? Is he any better?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he should be good to go. Kind of the 4 guys back there that we're planning on playing. Jalen, Keyborns, Lake Bates, and Jalen. I said Jalen, right? Stephen Rennell, sorry. Those are the 4 guys that will probably be mainly in the rotation. You got Jacorian kind of in the mix behind there too. But those are the guys that are going to step up and play.
The Key's been here for a long time, and Rashal hasn't. Tell us about those 2, what you've been seeing in practice and what they've done this year for you.
Well, Stephen Rennell has gotten here early on, and in June, and it just really intent. He was a corner in high school that we felt was always going to grow out of being a corner, so we moved him to safety right away. Just a really intent, really focused individual. That this year he spent most of the year on scout team early, and just kept getting better and better. And as the year went on, moved him up, I'd say about 3 weeks ago to start taking reps, with the defense. And he's done a really good job. He's big, he's physical, runs to the football. I think he's got a really bright future for us. Key is just a guy that's just injuries, I think, have just hampered most of his career. Even this year, he had a knee injury again earlier in the year that kind of slowed him down and kind of kept him out of it. But this guy's been here a long time. And we've had to, at different points in time, we've had to call on him, and he stepped in and gone and played. So I expect him to play well. Need him to play well. Lake has been playing really good for us. I think Jalen is more about confidence coming back from the injury than anything. So I think he's getting there more and more confident. And certainly now's the time to turn it on.
What about a cornerback?
Yeah, at corner, we've been rolling Avery Demery in there quite a bit. Zell started playing a little bit more. So those are 2 guys you expect to see a lot more. Jeremiah Moses has had a really good week of practice. And Jeremiah is a guy that's flashed for us, from time to time too. So, that's, those are the guys that have been playing a little bit, that'll play a little bit more. Trey Tomlinson's mostly playing at star now. And we feel good about those other guys playing at corner.
So Arkansas State, they got 9 sacks against Troy in one, and then they had a turnover fest. Like, what have you seen when they're playing well? What have you seen from them, and when they've struggled, what have you seen?
Well, turnovers are different, right? I mean, I don't care who you are. If you play a game like that and you turn over a bunch, I mean, you know, you really don't have much of a chance to win. You know, I mean, in that game, you know, and Southern Miss turned it over a few times too, but unfortunately, it happened the week before because it rarely happens 2 weeks in a row. You know, and they'll get that fixed, and so you expect them to play a clean game, and that's what they've done most of the year. You know, they've played pretty clean. They haven't turned it over. You know, their defense gets key stops when they need it. You know, and I think their offense. The thing about the offense is Arkansas State's offense. When they need scores, they get them. You know, like if you watch games kind of in sequence, it's all right when it starts to kind of get where it's almost out of hand. They go score a touchdown, and they kind of bring it back in range. And then certainly, you know, I think Rayner, you know, in 2-minute drill, when the game's on the line, he's been, you know, I think you could pretty much say elite in the way he's operated in 2 minute and led his team down the field to score. I mean, you know, South Al game, it's a 2-point game. South Al's down. They're 1st and 10 from the 10. They end up not getting any points. And Arkansas State drives the field and kicks a field goal in, you know, 40-something seconds. You know, the Texas State game in under a minute, you know, they take it and they go all the way down the field, score a touchdown, kick the extra point to win. So, I mean, he's led some winning drives. He kind of thrives in the chaos a little bit. You know, and certainly he's got, you know, Corey Rucker is a guy who's been here a long time, made a lot of plays for Arkansas State, still doing it. Slot receiver number 16 is a ball in hand guy they'll get it to, and he's got some make you miss and some wiggle. So, I mean, you know, they're spreading around a little bit in that 2-minute drill, and then obviously you getting 4 open, and then he takes off and runs, and you got a real problem. So we got to play a clean game. We can't give them the ball, and we got to try to force some turnovers and takeaways. You know, but the reality of it is I think whenever they're winning that 4-game stretch, they're playing clean football, and they're not giving the ball up.
What do you want to see from your offense heading into this week, especially with defense kind of now at a disadvantage with less numbers?
Well, you know, I think the last 2 weeks, you know, we started really fast, and that's going to be important. You know, in the second half, just, you know, finish and sustain some drives a little bit better, truthfully. I mean, I've really been pleased with the way we've played on offense the last few weeks. You know, it starts at quarterback. You know, you need Lunch to continue to make good decisions. But, I mean, you know, our running backs are running incredibly hard, you know, and especially with an offensive line that you got so many moving parts in. They're maximizing the yards. You know, they're making people miss. They're running through contact. They're playing really hard with and without the ball. You know, we're blocking down the field on the perimeter. We just got to go play good football. And, I mean, we need to be efficient, you know, especially early on. You need to try to go put some points on the board, let the defense breathe a little bit. You know, and certainly, you know, last week we converted at a really high rate on 3rd downs. And in the red zone, we were, you know, I think 5 for 5 in the red zone on touchdowns. So those are things that have hampered us at times this year. And, you know, a lot of times that's the difference in the game. I mean, that was, you know, 2 years ago against South Al. We had 3 trips in the red zone. We had 3 drops for touchdowns. We lose by 2. You know, that's typically the difference comes in a couple of those things there. So, you know, we got to continue to play good football. You know, we got to continue to move the ball. We got to continue to throw the ball effectively, which we've done the last probably 4 weeks. That way it takes a little pressure out of the run game too.
Arkansas State's been hard to figure out. A couple of weeks ago, they had 2 guys rush for 100 yards. I can't remember the last time that happened. And since then, those guys haven't run. Like, what have you seen from their run game?
The stat lines are ridiculous. I mean, if you go through and you try to pattern anything, I don't know. Like, there's a game where they'll give up a bunch of rushing yards, and then another game they turn around and give up 70, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's wacky. You know, I mean, I think part of maybe the success is, you know, whenever you focus too much on the wideouts and you focus too much on lightening the box. You know, number 5, that running back they got, you know, he's a big back. You know, he played well at Southern Miss last year before he went there. He's really, really physical. And they use him as a lead blocker, too, with some of the draws and stuff they do for Jalen. You know, I mean, it's kind of – I think it's you know, you focus too much on the vertical throw game, which they're good at. And then you lighten up the box. And if you don't do a good job getting off of blocks and you got problems there, you commit too many to the run, they'll double move you or they'll throw verticals down the field and make plays on those. So I think we got to play really well up front. I think our front 7 if we can play really well in the front seven and really kind of control the line of scrimmage a little bit and not give up, a lot in the run game, that can help our secondary quite a bit. They start running the ball really well on you. You got to start committing more people in the box. Well, then now you're talking about a lot of singles and one-on-ones and, with some good players.
So to me, it's very ironic that where you were 6 weeks ago or so, it looks like on paper you're going into the game where the offense needs to carry the load and get this done. I mean, do you feel like that y'all built enough confidence and execution over the last 2 or 3 weeks? Y'all are ready to do that if you have to in the game on offense?
Yeah, our last 3 wins have kind of ended up going that way a little bit. Go back to Marshall and and all these games. So, yeah, I do. I mean, as a team, you got to find ways to win, and this year has been kind of crazy because there's really no blueprint just with all the things that have happened. Last year it was very clear: protect the football on offense, be really efficient, eat up a lot of clock, and score touchdowns when you get in the scoring area, whether it was field goals or touchdowns with Kenny. It was just put points on the board drive after drive. This year has just been a little bit. It's been a little bit more difficult because our team has changed so much throughout the course of the year, and what we thought we were going to be, and then the way things have happened for a number of different reasons. Where you are now, it's kind of flipped over a little bit from, in the middle of the year, it was like, we're going to have to play great on defense to have a shot, to now it's like, okay, on offense, we've got to go sustain drives, start fast, score some points, and, take a little pressure off the defense. So it's been about one of the craziest years I've ever been a part of, to be honest with you.
Have you ever put a finger on the whole Jonesboro thing? Y'all have been heavy favorites over there and barely won since you've been here. And last time y'all went, it was a nightmare game. It's not like they packed the stadium, and yet it seems like it's a tough place to play.
Yeah, I think, I'll go back to the last time we played up there. We didn't have enough maturity on that team to handle success very well. And if you remember, we went on the road and we beat South Al, which was probably the biggest win of that year. And it was a really good football team that they were heavily favored to win. Truthfully, we really probably shouldn't have beat them, but we played really well and kind of ran away with it. And that team just didn't have enough maturity to handle any type of success. We went up there and looked like we were sleepwalking. We played slow. We got hit in the mouth. We didn't respond. We have a chance to drive down the field and still tie it up, and we end up throwing a pick, down on the 10-yard line. It was just one of the, we lost our backup quarterback who was starting and playing really well in that game. He got hurt. He was out for the rest of the year. Chandler had to come into a tough situation. You just got to handle these trips with maturity, and people are like, well, it's a long drive from Memphis to there. That's all a bunch of BS, man. You got to go and you got to handle it really well. And, and for us, that's what we've got to go do. I thought the last couple road games we played better, at Troy. The turnovers are what killed us, but we started fast, got out there, got off to a good start, turned the ball over a couple times. That really hurt us. Going to South Al, taking the bus trip and all that stuff that goes with it. We handled that really well, played really well. I think our team is kind of settling into, these are the things that we got to do, which obviously it's time in week 11. But you got to have mental toughness to go on the road and go play on the road anywhere you go. And, we're not harping a whole lot on what the history of it is, because it's really got nothing to do with our team and their team. It's really irrelevant. It's the same thing. They talk about Texas State and all this other stuff. Well, it's like, it has nothing to do with the previous 12 years or whatever. It's about this team right here, right now. So we're focusing on what we've got to do to go play well. You have a similar trip at Troy, when we stay in Montgomery. It's about an hour drive from Montgomery to Troy. So it's not like this is completely unique. You just got to go handle it well. And I think last year had more to do with the lack, or 2 years ago, the lack of maturity we possessed as a team to handle success. Before that, I'm sure you're talking about the 1-point win, we were over there. We threw a pick in the end zone on the 1-yard line going in. I think we maybe got stopped another time on the one going in. In the fourth quarter, we had a 10.5-minute drive to win the game. it was, yeah, I mean, it's the way it works sometimes, but, the reality of it is, I mean, you got to go out, you got to go play the game, and you got to go figure out a way, to get your team ready to play. And that's what we've got to do as coaches is we got to get them ready to go, have them fired up and chomping at the bit, which, the truth in it is, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about what we were playing for and keeping the faith and having faith that we could turn this thing around. And, it's hard to do when you're not seeing the results. Well, now you got a couple wins, a little bit of momentum. Now you can see it, you can feel it. So, we got to harness that energy and that excitement, and we got to go turn into something really good and turn it into real momentum. Because, for a few weeks now, we've been in the playoffs here and there's no wiggle room. And this is, week 3 of it.